Hi all, this is a comparison between the E-Revo 2 and the Maxx diffs. This is the Maxx front or rear diff on the right and the E-Revo front or rear diff on the left. Same size bearing on the cup side and the ring gear side, E-Revo 2 on the left, Maxx on the right, again same size bearing. This is the Maxx diff in the front bulkhead. It fits with a slight amount of left and right play, and this is the E-Revo 2 diff in the Maxx housing. It fits with a fairly similar amount of left and right play. So these are the front diff input pinions. This is the Maxx part on the right, E-Revo 2 part on the left. They seem to be identically the same part. They use the same size bearings, again Maxx on the right and E-Revo 2 on the left. So this is the Maxx input pinion and the Maxx diff in the Maxx housing. Now this is the E-Revo 2 input pinion with the Maxx diff and the Maxx housing. So same mesh there. And now we're back to the Maxx input pinion, Maxx case, and the E-Revo 2 diff. And as you can see, everything gets very crunchy. The mesh is very tight. If you close up the diff case, it gets worse with the pressure. So you can see that I'm flat out turning it from the outdrive, and the mesh is just really tight. It gets really crunchy. It's the same whether I put the E-Revo 2 input pinion in, because it's the same part. And here we have the Maxx diff in the rear bulkhead. Spins freely, of course. This is the E-Revo 2 diff in the rear Maxx bulkhead. Fits perfectly. Now with the center diff installed, meshes perfectly. Again, as you would expect. We'll drop in the E-Revo 2 diff. You see how it's lifting that input pinion out of the casing with the increased pressure from the mesh being too tight. So it fits, probably would work, it just doesn't inspire confidence. So the diff actually fits the casing properly. And there's just not enough play to actually shim that diff across and adjust the mesh. It's just going to put pressure on the races, and those bearings are just going to wear out really quickly. You can see if we come in close here that there still is a bit of play in the mesh. And this is the Maxx diff, the play in the Maxx diff for comparison. You can just see it's a much smoother gear mesh. And this is the Maxx diff on the right, E-Revo 2 diff on the left. The Maxx teeth are wider, which seems to be a nice improvement. They're both 37 teeth. The Maxx seems to be a slightly larger outer diameter. Alright, so this is the Maxx diff. We have 53.4 side to side, E-Revo 2 diff, and it's a little shorter at 51.3. Okay, so firstly, from the bearing seat to bearing seat, 25.85 for the Maxx and 25.72. So pretty much the same there. And just comparing that outdrive length, Maxx is definitely just longer there. This is the Maxx outdrive diameter, 7mm, and this is the E-Revo outdrive diameter, 8mm. The pins are also different. The E-Revo 2 on the left has a 3mm pin, and the Maxx has a 2.5. So the extra thickness of the E-Revo 2 outdrive allows for that stronger pin. Now, the outer diameters, 47.1 for the Maxx and 46.7 for the E-Revo. What you can see here though, between the E-Revo 2 diff on the left and the Maxx on the right, is that the E-Revo 2 slopes away from the face of the teeth, whereas the Maxx is straight. But it does look like the Maxx is a little bit thinner, and the E-Revo 2 diff looks pretty substantial at the bottom of the teeth. Now I've only got the one bearing in here, but it's something I did notice before, is that there is a lot of space on the outside here, very little on the inside and a fair bit on the outside, so hopefully we'll see some more substantial diff gears coming for the Maxx, maybe even a set of spiral cut gears. And now comparing the center diffs. So both diffs are very similar end to end at 64.84 for the E-Revo 2 diff and 65.2 for the Maxx diff. From the diff cup end to the bearing seat, 12mm for the E-Revo 2 and slightly different at 12.82 for the Maxx. And the diff outdrive diameter again is 8mm for the E-Revo 2 and 7mm for the Maxx. And they both turn down to 6mm at the output, but both fit the output to the diff pinion just the same, obviously meaning the pin size is the same. Time to see what's inside. So here we have the ring gears from the diffs, centers up the top, front rears below, E-Revo 2 on the left and Maxx on the right. So you can see they all have a similar locating pin system. You can see the difference in the Maxx gears that they're made for that 7mm outdrive and the E-Revo is made for the 8mm. Consequently, there's a difference in the seals. The Maxx has those O-ring seals and the E-Revo has the larger and thicker X-ring seals. And then you can see the differences in the recesses on the Maxx gears and the protrusions on the E-Revo 2 gears for those different internal gears. Here we are brought right up close to see the differences in the offset of these gears. So you can see that the E-Revo 2 is just slightly higher than the Maxx, and I think that's what's affecting the mesh with the diff pinions. You can see here that the provision for the bearing to the end is very similar, so we should be able to consider that when we set them on their face, such as this, that they will be in a similar position in the diff case. So the Maxx center gear definitely fits the metal E-Revo 2 case, but there's really no point to the stock gear because the outdrive bore is smaller than the E-Revo 2 outdrive shaft. So it's looking like the Maxx metal cased diff that uses this diff case, by the looks of it, looks like it's using perhaps the same gear but just a larger bore. So again, this is the E-Revo 2 on the left, the Maxx on the right. The size of the Maxx gear is definitely substantial. It's just whether the material is as hard as the E-Revo 2 material, and plus the one-piece shaft of the E-Revo 2 is definitely the stronger design and will run more true without any play from the separate shaft and sun gear setup. I can definitely feel some play between the two. These are the plastic diff cases, E-Revo 2 on the left, Maxx on the right. So you can see that the Maxx, the end of the crosspin has no extra bracing or reinforcement to where it contacts the plastic case, whereas the E-Revo 2 has these small metal inserts that, as we can see here, offer quite a lot of extra surface area for that force to transfer into the plastic. And here we can see the metal case uses a similar system with a unique set of inserts. The remainder of the internals, spider gears and the crosspins seem identical. So to sum up, the similarities and differences we've seen between the two diffs, it seems overall the E-Revo 2 and the Maxx diffs seem a fairly similar overall size, and that the E-Revo 2 diff will drop into the Maxx bulkheads, but as far as I can tell it seems to be the differences in those ring gear teeth, and most notably that slight offset in the E-Revo 2 teeth that seems to be throwing the mesh off. The next difference being the diameter of the outdrives, meaning that these E-Revo 2 internals can't drop straight in to the Maxx case or ring gear because of the diameter of those bores. that the Maxx sun gears seem very substantial in size, perhaps more substantial in size than the E-Revo 2, but I'm unsure of the strength of what looks to be a pressed or cast material compared to what looks to be a machined material for the E-Revo 2. The separate output shaft through a drive pin to the sun gear having some play in that assembly compared to the more substantial one-piece design of the E-Revo 2. Seeing the similarities in the spider gears and the cross pins between both diffs, with the exception of these load spreading metal inserts in the E-Revo 2 diff cup. The metal diff cup has the same inserts, but they're slightly different in that they're keyed a particular way into that cup. The main diff seals are very similar, if not the same, between the two. Obvious differences in the outdrive seals due to the diameter. The Teflon shims being different to account for the different size sun gears, and this shim being metal in the E-Revo 2 metal diff case, and the screws holding it together being the same between both. So it seems there should be some compatibility between the two, but what it looks like is that the Maxx is going to require dedicated gears for the front, rear and the center if they are using these internals, so that we can make use of the heavier duty diff cups. It seems Traxxas has now released an upgraded center diff with the metal case from the E-Revo 2, hopefully the same internals, and the larger bore. It will be interesting whether it uses the same internals and this whole internal structure is changed to be compatible with the machined E-Revo 2 sun gears and outdrives. And what it seems may be happening is that there may be an upgraded front and rear diff coming, such that it can use the stronger internals and fit the heavy duty case, and maybe we'll see a much heavier duty gear there given the extra space in the bulkheads, maybe even a spiral cut pinion and ring gear set for the Maxx.